Welcome to the Frequency Ma podcast with Sheena Israel and Alyssa Ma. Frequency Ma is a sanctuary for the oracular and the ordinary. We explore the interwoven paths of mothering, embodied business and prosperity, self-creation and relationship, spiritual technologies like channeling and frequency keeping. Expect earth and insights to catalyze your quantum leaps. For the multidimensional, multi-passionates, all of you is welcome here. Journey with us. Hello and welcome to episode 11 of the Frequency Ma podcast. We are here today with Amron Bevels, who is a true powerhouse, multi-passionate, and she works with women who lead themselves. She empowers them to create and activate their full potential and to step into their spiritual badassery, which we love. And her mission's really crystal clear. So she wants to help every woman fully embody their fullest potential, to step into their soul's mission, and to lead during this time of great spiritual awakening. And she's been dedicated to this path since 2008. And I'm sure through many lifetimes and, through childhood and beyond, but very specifically this turning point in 2008, which I'm sure we'll get into, when she made this bold decision to leave behind her medical career and to follow a calling that was both new and ancient. And so Amron, in addition to being a trained medical doctor, is a psychic development teacher, a coach, a healer, and a mentor. She's also the co-author of the Priestess Transmissions, this beautiful book here, alongside Amy Belair. And whether it's guiding women to help them take courageous steps forward on their personal missions, she's here to guide women who feel the call. And so we will surely link all of the ways that you can find Amron through the digital realms. And now in her own journey, she's deeply answering the call of the priestess, the crone, and the medicine woman. And right now she's delving into sexual growth and exploring how this enhances her spiritual practice, her life force, and her psychic development. So Amron, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. I'm excited. Let's go.
I know we've just been like all abuzz this week leading up to our conversation. So I'm just so happy to get into
Cool.
you.
I'm excited to be here. Can I just start by acknowledging that your mission is dovetailing with mine in some way? I can just feel it. And when you guys asked me to be a guest, it was like, absolute yes. I didn't do any research to actually know who you're serving. I'd love to hear from you guys. Who is your woman right now? Or is it even, maybe it's both the masculine and the feminine? Like, what is your charge right now? What's lighting you up?
I can speak into it while you're feeling into it, Sheena, if you would like. I feel like the line that always comes to mind for me is the multi-dimensional, multi-passionate. And so I feel like there's so many women and men as well. So when, we're holding this container for the Ma frequency, the Ma is not just the mother. The Ma is source, it's Sophia. It is, all of the current of all the faces that the goddess has ever worn, and it belongs to everyone. And so, how this unnameable force moves through our embodied vessel in all of these different ways in this realm. And so it's like where the rubber meets the road, per se, is like, we're all on these spiritual missions and we can become mired in this kind of, new age doctrine and ways of speaking, and then kind of, get lost in that. But, what I'm so curious to hear about, like your journey specifically, is that you've woven this like deeply esoteric ancient wisdom with this very like you're a medical doctor. Like you went through this intensive training to like really bring healing into the physical realm. And then, this idea that women also I think a lot of women are positioned in places where they are in a 9 to 5 and they're wanting to be stay-at-home moms, or they're stay-at-home moms and they're wanting to, birth their spiritual business. And so you've really embodied this weaving of doing it all. And I think like when I'm reading your intro, it's like, oh, in 2008, you left your medical career behind. But I'm sure for you, or I'm curious for you, that you know, if you mark that shift um, so clearly, or if it's this long weaving of like this, memory in childhood that awakened this, and then, something when you were, 18 that, showed you how you could weave, medicine with the priestess path. And like, it's a long journey that's so shimmering and multidimensional. And so I think it's really, for me, my seeking is to speak into like the texture of these transformations, because we're all seeking transformation. But how does it actually happen? Like, and in real women's lives, like, how did you move
Mm,
being a doctor into this priestess path? Because
mm,
I want that. I want that medicine for me. And I think that, and that insight into like, am I on the path, right? Am I on the path to change? Or, what inner callings ought I be listening to, and what should I be, um, allowing to release as part of the old paradigm? And I think that comes through story. And so
mm.
this is such a space for those stories to come through.
Wow. Thank you for that explanation. That was
Mm.
phenomenally orienting and beautiful to hear and so poetically delivered. Thank you.
Aw,
Yeah,
thank
really
you for
beautiful.
being here.
Yeah.
I don't really have anything to add to that because we've been discussing this project and this podcast for 2 years now, and it's so interwoven. Like it was perfect, everything that you said, and I would just add in this idea of story and conversation, and how it's really in these kind of organic flowing kind of experiences that we weave with one another, the
Mm,
space in between where the texture comes alive. And when we speak to the aliveness, I feel that it opens up the portal of creation for our individual path. And when we say, am I on the right path? Like that's not going to look the same for everybody.
right.
And that's why the many voices and the many faces are really important to, I believe, hold space for as
Mm,
like the all, because there is no one path for you know, any individual, but we can share and we can celebrate one another, and we can receive medicine from one another and make it our own. And I think that's really beautiful. And it just feels really like exciting. It's like,
mm,
yeah, I'm kind of, for me, just to be the person in a crowd and then just ask everybody all these different questions and sit back and listen. That's something that's very exciting for me. And I
mm,
know that because when I do listen, I receive so much like joy
mm.
and beauty from that. So again, everything Alyssa said, that's what this space is.
Beautifully put. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, excellent. Good. Well, I want, as we begin here and launch, to acknowledge and um, call ourselves up to meet our guides, to meet our higher self, and to meet the auxiliary beings who are present here to support us and assist us in our transmissions today. I feel very mission aligned. And I really feel the alignment, like I said before, of our callings. And I'm really excited to be here and participating with you all. So, as such, I'm really feeling myself tuning in with the higher selves of the women who will be receiving this, who are receiving this, who are sharing this episode. So I'm just acknowledging that and calling it out because it's very present and I'm really feeling that. So yay.
Oh, I love that. Yes, it's so beautiful to acknowledge the shared field that we're creating across time and
Mm,
space. and it's shimmering, it's alive. Wherever you meet this, you are in the right place, you are in the right time. And yeah, what a gift to be in this co-weaving. And I would love to yeah, to move to the point of a prompt to get into your story. And what is just most alive for me right now is this, yeah, 2008 transition. So again, we have this like date, you know, where you moved from being a medical doctor into your path. But I would love for you to speak into, from, you know, your vantage right now, when you look back at this date, that, you know, in the delivering of a biography, you know, that's, you know, the kind of the transition point. But what to your mind is the kind of origin point of this transition in careers, in um yeah, the shifting of your mission focus?
That's a great question. You know, when you say origin point, I'm immediately drawn to lifetimes before this one. The origin point is um, the soul signature aligning with this vehicle of this body in this lifetime, bringing in the knowledge and the awareness from my previous lifetimes that also can inform this one. Not all previous lifetimes, but the ones in which I was a medicine woman, a healer, a facilitator, a high priestess, a teacher, a mystery school guide. Um, I didn't know of all of these parallel realities, other human lifetimes when I made my transition, but I was very clear that I was not being fueled or excited or nourished by the practice of conventional medicine. I had already studied extensively naturopathic, natural medicine, holistic medicine, integrative medicine, home studied and taken a number of courses in college and in high school. I was just a self-taught like maniac, learning all about everything from bioenergetics, the what the clairvoyant sees when she's looking at the auric field of a person having an emotional response to a thing. What does trauma attachment look like? Before we had those terms, um, in the auric field, how we're storing pockets of unprocessed emotion in our auric field in our body. Um, I was really fascinated by all of this, and I knew because I'd been brainwashed as a 3-year-old by my loving mother, who's amazing, that I was going to take a medical path. What I didn't know was that I would hate the conventional version of that, feel like I was being asked to build a house with spoons, which is, challenging, and that I would refuse to practice altogether. I mean, it was just making me sick. And there were a few things that tipped the scales at the right time. I had just completed medical school. I had just been accepted to a very competitive residency program in family medicine, which is not so competitive, but it was, the top 2 locations in the nation. So I had done the thing. I'd gotten the degree. I was at a stopping point and a transitional point, having this background of being a non-quitter. I will finish the job. I will get the thing done. I will suck it up and just do it, which has its faults. But my mom had just redirected fulminant malignant, almost stage 4, probably was stage 4 breast cancer. And we had worked tirelessly. This was the year before I graduated from medicine. And I had to wear 3 hats. I wore the daughter who loves her mother hat. I wore the conventional medical doctor hat, who was also just a medical advocate. And I also wore the medical advocate from the holistic, this is my client patient who wants to do it her way and feels like she's poisoning her body hat. So that's a lot to put on before you complete your medical degree and are practicing, you know. But we did it, and it was a feat. It was exhausting. It was really clarifying for me as well about what I know beyond the conventional, you know, um, portfolio, let's say. And it was really gratifying because my patient, my mother, was doing very well. It was also grueling and extremely stressful because if anything goes wrong, all eyes turn to me. So I really got to understand up close so many things where conventional medicine falls short, where conventional medicine can't look into the patient's belief system, where the medical system can't instill what they call false hope, which literally means they're stuck relaying the lowest common denominator prognoses or likelihoods, which are grim at best, as the likely outcome or a possible outcome. But we're leaving out the very key piece that we're seeding people's realities. I had a huge problem with that, to name just a few. Also, we really left out the autonomy and the introspective power or clarity of the patient. How did you get here? In what ways have you betrayed yourself to get here? In what ways have you said yes to something outside of yourself that really didn't feel congruent with your highest integrity that got you here? If we asked those questions in medicine, I believe people would heal so much more and quickly. Just to name one thing, I'm leaving off nutrition. I'm leaving off all of these beautiful allopathic, modalities. There's acupuncture, there's chiropractic, there's osteopathy, there's womb therapy, there's energy medicine. There are infinite modalities. And I began studying them really deliberately in, like I said, high school, college, after medical school, because there's no way I could do that during medical school. And then really came to learn after studying like 13, maybe more modalities, guys, everything from pranic healing to Reiki, chelation, polarity, shiatsu, all sorts of things, Thai massage. It's really all about frequency. It's really all about helping someone retrain their baseline vibration so that they are no longer vibrating in accordance with whatever begat that stillness, that sickness, right? I can't speak. I'm not sure if begot is the right word, but like whatever, created that sickness. If you can, which is why literally just plucking someone who's sick out of their everyday life and moving them to another country, how many people run away to Greece or Hawaii, right? For healing. Just removing them from their environment where every single signal has been adapted to, right? They've created this microsystem that continues to support their illness. Remove them, put them in a whole new environment, and they get better. You don't know how many people I've met who are just glowing after a terminal, prognosis, diagnosis, heart disease, right? Like, we all get this energetically. We all know this intuitively, even if you don't hear my stories. So there's no way in hell I could practice medicine. I saved myself. I got out of there. And then it was like, okay, now what? So that was the beginning of the rest of my life. And that was back in 2008.
Wow. It's funny. I lived in Northern Europe for a couple of years in grad school, and we, as an American, I would always kind of, scoff and make fun of the Norwegians who would, they'd go for a traditional medical appointment, and they'd be depressed, or they'd have some ailment, and they'd prescribe them like, you need 3 weeks in Spain, and they'd get there like, here you go.
Wow, that's
Then
amazing.
yes, and it's like, it's just so antithesis to the kind of, allopathic system that we have so entrenched, here in the US, and it's just, so magical. And I love your just astute description of the micro environments that we create that hold these patterns in place, because I think a lot of it is about this kind of pattern disruption. And I think that's where a lot of us get stuck, is that we feel like we have this vision of um, you know, Costa Rica or France, or, wherever we're being called. And it's that like, but I can't fully actuate that movement until I'm out of the environment. So we're caught in this kind of looping, this catch
Mm.
two, where we're like, I know I need to change my environment, but I need to change my environment to change my environment. So I'd love to invite you to speak into like what are some of the ways in which you um some simple practices or yeah, some life hacks to disrupt when you are kind of seemingly
Feeling stuck
stuck
in the
in
rut.
these. Yeah.
Yeah, let me tune into that. I'm gonna channel an answer for us. I think what's coming first is that you are the what is that saying? You are the cure you've been waiting for. You are the rescue you've been waiting for.
Mm.
Take accountability. Really, like I say that with my heart. I say that with compassion, and I also say that with a big slap on the ass. Like, how many of you women are sitting because that's what a good woman does? How many of you are sitting on your hands, continuing to wash the dishes, do the laundry that you hate doing, right? Make love to your man because he expects that. And you never make soup for dinner because that's not a real meal, right? Oh, and you leave the temperature down at 65 because that's what he likes, right? Oh, and then come home, right? Like how much acquiescing, accommodating, obligatory behaving are we doing, right? So much. How sick do you need to get before you will do something different? Because you all have a way to get out of your environment, even if it's just running away to your sister's house for the weekend. Figure it out. Bring up your sense of self priority and make yourself matter. We have prided ourselves for too long, centuries, in carrying more and more bricks because we can. Because we're multidimensional beings, because we're multitasking beings, because we're always thinking with a 360-degree purview about this, that, what am I cooking for dinner? How's my kid at school right now? Okay, yeah, I know she's getting a cold. Let's make sure she sleeps well. Probably going to miss soccer today, right? Any given moment, we are in 8 different places. What about me? I think that's the simple answer that I have right now. And another little push that kind of comes through sometimes here is, well, if you keep doing what you're doing for another 10 years, where do you think you'll be there? Or another way to say that is, at what point do you get so far off track, you get so far beside yourself that you'll actually do something? And what drastic measure would you take at that point? Because you will have earned the right to take care of yourself at that time, right? We get to just choose. And it's not easy. Nobody agreed with me leaving medical school except maybe one advocate who was very far removed from me. She was a wonderful woman who I love to this day, but nobody understood it. Nobody thought it was the right move, the wise move, the financially responsible move. I had worked so hard for this. I'm throwing it all away. Yeah, and right? I'm alive. I'm really healthy. My soul is on fire. I'm here doing the work I know I'm here to do. I'm lit up every day. I wake up at 4 in the morning and I download shit. Like, this is my life. I get to do this. I feel so on mission.
Mm.
I'm unstoppable now. I've got enough energy, right? And this is just one crossroads in my life where I've jumped off the cliff in the dark, wondering if how I'm not gonna land and go splat, right? I did it with my divorce. I left a very conventional, very comfortable, air quotes, marriage that wasn't working for either of us. We were both dying on the vine and starving with young children, but somebody had to choose survival over strangling ourselves off under convention. How long is it going to take? And if we look around in the climate right now, which is very different from the climate in 2008, politically, geopolitically, economically, climate-wise, all the things, how much longer do you want to sit on your hands and not fulfill your fullest version of your mission? How many of you are still wondering what lights you up, right? Let's get about it. Now is the time. I really believe that women are here walking the leading edge of this awakening right now. This awakening across humanity where we are actually choosing unity over suffering. Connection over division, right? But saying no to suffering involves choosing yourself first. It involves tuning in with your preferences. What do I like? Trusting that there is room for you on this earth to be that which you prefer. Maybe even stepping aside from the ego a little bit and recognizing, oh yeah, this is soul-given desire. I'm actually here on purpose, not just an accidental dust ball that just has to beg for food and water. No, I actually came in, jet propelled down into a body so that I could contribute and participate right now and have fun and expand consciousness and stuff, I'm actually kind of got a fun job I get to do. Yeah, that's it.
Slap on the ass received.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I feel like those practical steps too also bring it back into frequency, as you mentioned, because to say no to suffering, we also have to take accountability and be responsible for ourselves. And that also brings us back into looking into our belief systems and how that generates and how that creates and feeds the frequency that which we are carrying around with us within these pocket stories and programs within our auric field that are playing out subconsciously, sometimes consciously, and we're like, I don't like that I do that, but I don't know how to not do it anymore. And then that's when accountability comes in and responsibility. And you look at it and there's this process of maybe changing the internal environment. If you can't change what's outside, start changing what's inside. And that's frequency work and it's responsibility work. And it is often a slap on the ass again and again, or in the face if it feels that way. Sometimes it feels like a slap in the face to me. And as that happens, the external does shift for us because it can't not, because it's resonance, and that's how the universe works.
Yes, sister, 100%. I love what you just said. Yes, thank you for that. So that's where the trust really comes in, right? I create, I receive what I intend. I receive what I'm actually manifesting with my intention, with my speaking of what I desire, with my claiming of what I desire. I'm actually manifesting it. The molecules are coalescing and organizing in advance of my receiving of that, completed, actualized reality that I'm calling into form. Yeah, we get to take comfort and take power, really, in our ability to command the environment to meet us.
It's really fun to, I feel, think about manifestation in this way when we are really bringing spirit into the matter of our being. And we can even talk about it biologically and physiologically, as you just said, looking at the molecules and understanding, what does the mitochondria do with oxygen? So many things, and it is commanded through the waters in our system, through our voice, through our belief system. And I think that when you're talking about stepping away from a conventional medical career and you spend all this money, all this time, it's so wasted. The first thing that came to my mind was it can't be wasted. You can know nothing. It doesn't matter what kind of job you do, what you do for money in the world. Nothing can take away your wisdom from the experiences. You didn't lose anything. You're just using it differently. You're taking it somewhere else.
Yes, sister. I love that. Took me a while to come to that awareness as well. And thank you for that reflection. Yeah, we can't unknow what we know. We can't unlearn what we've learned.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the other thing I think I would add for all women at the brink. So there are probably some listening who are at the brink of a big decision. Everything you have walked up until now is informing how you walk next, how you prefer, how you create. And so much of where you've been is rising to meet who you're becoming.
Beautifully said. I
Mm.
feel that. I'm so curious how your sex practice has informed this continued evolution. So, moving from we're always, we have these points that we, in retrospect, we can see as this, like, oh, this was the kind of crux of the transformation, even as we're living into it. But how is your sex practice evolving who you're currently becoming?
So excited you want to talk about this. Let's go. Okay. So, great question. A few years ago during, I think it was our 4th priestess portal experience, which is a very straightforward 12-week experience where we are walking through the transmissions of the book and letting those activations and codes inform our awareness, our psychic awareness, our awareness of our capabilities, of who we're here to be, how it is that our presence at its fullest potential is fulfilling or locking in with our soul blueprint and creating this energetic, like wave-like ripple effect out into the world. That's awesome, right? And we're doing it in group. And we're all just juicing each other up and supporting each other in our courage. One priestess was going through a pretty heinous divorce and was just recognizing how oxytocin's released in sex, and it just clicked for her. It was like, what if I use self-pleasuring as a way to build oxytocin for myself? Because she's been dealing with this lifelong self-denial, self-neglect, self-repellent almost effect within just her own inner love for herself, not sexually related. So she decided to take on this practice, and we all decided we were going to do this with her. And we started something called the 100 Orgasm Initiative, which if you go deep, deep into the priestess codes Instagram, you'll see posts about that. And it started this rise in my own circuitry, lighting itself up. It came first from the solar plexus, probably in response to the question of who am I, how dare I, is this okay? Because I came from a you don't self-pleasure kind of lifestyle, remnants of Catholicism and Christianity for me. And a pious woman doesn't need that. And I had a great deal of pride about how little sexual intimacy I required just for my own like well-being. Mind you, at the same time, I'm in a relationship with a man I call the monk. I lovingly call him the monk. He's this beautiful, amazing human. And this piece was just missing from our lives, probably because we both were a perfect match. You know, we don't need that level of intimacy for our own happiness and our own integrity and feeling, you know, complete as whole people. We're whole unto ourselves. It was just funny how much like subconscious pride we each carried about not needing intimacy and affection in this way. So as I'm starting to do this self practice, my guides are just like clanging the drum. And I'm the kind of person who's like, I'll tell my guides, just hit me over the head with a frying pan. I don't need subtleties. Just make it clear so I know. And then I can just redirect and I'll be on this path for a little while of practice. And they were just like, clang, 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 clang. And what they were showing me was you have, in the same way that you leverage the crown for channeling, your root and sacral is its own guidance system, its own sensory mapping system, its own discernment system, its own intuitive system, and you have decapitated it. She is, I like to call her she, dehydrated, shriveled up, disconnected, dismembered from the rest of your psychic and intuitive circuitry. Get her back online. And so over the next 2 years, concomitantly, my own self-pleasuring practice and psychic awareness became hydrated and supple, and my partnership became dehydrated and severed. And we parted ways at the early in this year, 2024, and it was abrupt, heartbreaking, and opened up an entire universe of what I'm now calling sex priesting. Where, I kid you not, ladies, let me get in close because this is pillow talk that I love talking about and don't get to talk about. The universe has equipped me with these incredible men who are bearers of the priestess priest archetype. And you can only imagine how old Amron's pride and, like, blinded me to being able to recognize these men. These aren't men I would be attracted to. These aren't men whose pheromones would signal me to, pay attention. These aren't men who I would look twice at the grocery store. These aren't men who I have friends as, they're not my friends. So universe had to, like, trick me, pull all these crazy, like, comical hoops and loops, get me go left, go right, now jump down the slide, here she goes, okay, look, there's a man, there he is, like, it was like that, right? And these men are teachers, therapists, and because I'm not relationship ready, I am very clear I'm in a practice of being my own primary right now. And I'm very clear with the expectations and the requests of these men. Are you available to join me in this practice of my own self-witnessing? And are you able to allow me the opportunity to witness you and to witness myself being witnessed by you? Like, it's a whole ping, 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 ping. This is the practice I'm about. And it's around my own pleasure, listening to my yoni, listening to my sacral and my root, listening to my heart, and connecting with my heart as much as I can, because I have historically had a closed or very guarded heart around intimacy. I'm all fun and games on the outside, but if you get too close to me, So I'm about emotional availability right now. Are you available to play with me in this realm? And some are, and some say they are and they're not, but we learn it very, very quickly. And it has been the most refreshing, earth-shattering, mind-blowing, ecstatic experience as I am grieving this tremendous, cutoff of my beloved partnership that I thought was my forever partnership. So I'm totally in the both and right now, having the best sex of my life. It's incredibly eye-opening. Like, I'm seeing colors brighter. I'm accessing compassion in ways I never have before. For the masculine even, it's just phenomenal. I'm also, my intuition for sure, no question. I mean, duh, right? But there's another thing that I've accessed, and I knew it intellectually, even though I didn't know how, it was just channeling in, that this was going to inform my money energetics, my money consciousness, my receiving. Now, it's all in the same house, right? It's all in the sacral. Community's there, money, finances are there, sexuality is there, relationship is there. It makes sense. But what I've come to see just recently, like last week, is how our societal systems have pressed into us scarcity, not enoughness around money and around affection, so much that our systems, our physical systems, have a really hard time with compassionate joy for others receiving money or pleasure. And I think it's really fascinating because I reached this threshold where I was I was able to access this joy, this overjoy at the idea of other women benefiting from this sex priesting with the men that I am learning with and studying with, and right? And it was just this incredible feeling in the access point of this bounty. There is enough, there's limitless affection out there. No mom with 6 kids doubts for a moment that she has enough love, right? And of course the money as well. Like it's moving, it's always moving. So in that way it is infinite. And it's just been such a heart opener for me to break through the veil of that false matrix overlay of not enoughness. Women are property. We're only good if we're withholding ourselves and saving ourselves for our man, right? It goes deep, it goes wide. I just wanted to scratch on the surface there with you guys. So, yeah.
That was more than a scratch. Beautiful. I do have like one follow-up question with what you were saying, like in the beginning. I mean, probably a dozen, but when you were mentioning in the past feeling in this like a pious woman does not need intimacy, right? Because we're already whole or whatever it is. That's a conversation that we all hear a lot within the spiritual community, not just religious community. And I'd love if just love to hear more on that from you, from your also just like your personal experience of what is it, how did you move from that internal belief system of I don't need this intimacy to now I get to celebrate that I get to receive it, right? It's a different shift. And I'm wondering, yeah, if there's more there from you.
Gosh, I wonder if there's more there for me too. Let me see what we can dredge up. I've witnessed a lot of codependency in my world around me, just the women, falling over themselves for the men in their lives, fawning. Yes, it is part of the fight or flight response. I love that we acknowledge that now. But it was also a survival method for us over centuries. Our very safety was dependent on being accepted into a home that was housed by a man. Women couldn't even own property, 50 years ago, right? Just a whisper, take it back to witch wounding, of you being in any way illegitimate as a woman, right? Knowing too much, potentially applying trickery, witchcraft, any whisper of it would get you slain and removed from your, community and your children. We are carrying such deep wounding around not acquiescing that there are multiple layers we get to explore in finding our autonomy, finding our sense of wholeness unto ourselves. And when we do, and I understand I'm talking about this in a different way than maybe we could have directly, because I just didn't have it that way before, that when we reach this awareness of, I'm going to say wholeness for lack of a better term, completeness unto ourselves, I can source all of my needs, all of my physical resource needs from source directly. That's what I'm talking about. Then we no longer need, period, a man, someone else outside of ourselves to provide. And the manipulation can fall away. So then we're available for a truly heart present, shamanic, for lack of better terms, connection. That feels complete.
I like that. It's I mean, even when you began with just using the word codependency, there's so much that we could unravel there in all areas of life, you know, with anything. So yeah, it's when you reach that position, and as you said, the manipulation stops, the codependency also stops, and you become available for something bigger, something like, you know, like the song Higher Love, like that always comes to mind with Houston. And
Wow.
I feel like that's like
Yeah.
the era that we are entering in like sacred partnership is higher love. We're gonna it's different now if
Heck
we
yes,
choose it.
sister.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I love you saying that. Thank you. Yes, that's so beautiful.
Mm.
Yeah, it's what we really want anyway, isn't it? You know, it's what we really want, and it enables, it allows all of who we are to be in the experience, in the lovemaking experience, in the partnering experience, right? We have so much more to give and we want to, but we hold it back, or at least a lot of us tend to hold it back in our partnerships because our man isn't worthy, so to speak, or we feel like it would be our last breath, you know, it would just be so exhaustive. It would take it out of us to give yet more after having to work through all of the, I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say here with my hand gestures, but it's like all of the conditions, that's the word, that allow us to be able to show up in the way we already do, which is a lot. So freaking much, you know? At least that's how I see it.
I love in your reveling around this topic that it reveals that there's no one pathway into wholeness. And so like you're choosing to follow your curiosity around a pleasure practice and then experiencing through your body this, opening to receiving more financial flow. It's like we all want all those things. We have our wish list of like, I want the partner, I want the money, I want the, like, and it can be overwhelming. Like, where do I start? And it's like, just to all the women listening, to myself, like, just start. Where do you feel the deepest ping of desire? Tune into that, and you don't need to bring the mind into it. It's like, listen, you can trust yourself to guide yourself into that next practice that will then unravel all of the readiness, to hold yourself through, to experience, the interconnection of all of these abundance pathways. I'm loving hearing your story of next.
Woo, I am loving your reflection, sister. Absolutely this. Absolutely this. You know, we get to soften to our desires, really. And if you think about, I'm going to say Catholicism because it feels like the greatest fracture of our identities. The desire, the connection with desire feels like the first sin that we were taught. And it wasn't just about sex. Don't laugh too loudly. Don't enjoy the food too much. Eat more simply, right? It's all about piety in poverty, piety in reducing the texture, the zest, the enjoyment.
Mhm. I'm really curious because I'm seeing in the collective this kind of reawakening to Yeshua and Christ consciousness in this real way that I was kind of, witnessing from afar, as, someone that grew up going to Catholic school and, had kind of come to a place of peace with these Abrahamic religions, but not a place of appreciation. And I'm finding more and more, I'm reading this book by Sophie Strand, The Madonna Secret, I believe it's called, which is phenomenal. But it's, the story of Yeshua and Miriam and their just like epic erotic love story. And it's And it's, told through the eyes of the land, like through this, ecological, eco-erotic, and it's really just, it's such a transmission through this kind of, simple story about, the codes that are kept under wraps within these, religious doctrines. And I'm really just feeling the kind of core essence like shimmering through and like sloughing off the outer shell of yeah, these very, deeply repressive practices. And I'm feeling it in the collective field. And I'm so curious to hear you speak into your experience of that. Because I haven't had the opportunity to talk about this. And yeah, what's your, as a former Catholic, or as a, what's your relationship to these older religions, and then the religions that even precede those?
Whew. I don't have much to offer about my personal experience in this category here. I would say that because I was twice removed from Catholicism, it
Mm.
was my grandmother who left the church and worked for a bank and married 5 times in order to keep her finances where they needed to be. She was a San Francisco vixen who was a you know path blazer in all of the ways. um, I see a distinct split between her multiple siblings and like herself, right? So what I feel is the direction is for the three of us to channel in together and put our antenna together and tune in with this sloughing off and shedding of that scaly outer layer of outdated, I'm going to say Catholicism, patriarchy, self-sacrifice codes that are heaped with shame, self-repelling as well, and seeing ourselves as marred or mired with sin. This is a self-perpetuating system of beating ourselves for not being enough and then purporting not enoughness, minimizing ourselves under the false name of piety and being a good human, seeing ourselves as less than God and not worthy, keeping ourselves from love, from receiving, and from stepping forward into our fullest stewardship of people, of earth, of resources. This is what I'm being shown here. As we see the system, we can see the flaws and we can allow it to rearrange, really. Where do you want to put in on this circuit? Where do you want to stop the flow? Where do you want to redirect? Right? We now know too much. We can't unsee what we've seen. Our hearts are bigger now. And we're tired of conforming. We're tired of losing out. And we realize that every woman in her power is a gift for us all. So maybe we can too, you know? Yeah.
Mhm. I love everything that you shared, but the piece about the circuitry of the system and the subtle energetic rearrangement of the energy pathways within this collective field.
Mm.
Like this is work that we are all doing and that we can tune into at any time, but we're doing it through our choices to be with our desire and to center that as mothers, as lovers, as leaders, to center our desire, and that this is not just for us. We are choosing this for our children. We are choosing this for our progeny. This is like you were saying at the start, this is the ripple out from our systems into the collective, that it becomes available for other women. So women who are, looking for a template that is different from what has been, we are feeding that, we are energizing it, we are enlivening that so it becomes visible, it becomes tangible, it becomes accessible. And so like this is such deep work, and I'm so happy to be speaking into it, because it is, sometimes we can forget just how deep our work goes and how meaningful it is, not just for ourselves. And we can feel that, programming start to encroach, like, it's selfish. That's just for me. It's not just for you. This is for you. Choosing your deepest desire is for us all, men and women, the earth,
Mm.
the sky. It's,
Mm. Yes, sister. Sheena, I felt like you had something coming forward after we dropped in together.
Mm,
Mm.
you are on point. I want to speak a little bit into the religious programming. Actually, when Alyssa was talking about that, I don't have any one system that I belonged to, but I would say that as a child, I grew up and was blessed with being able to witness many different religious ways of life. I grew up in a city. There were people from all around the world. I went to Coptic Christian churches and Russian Orthodox and Romanian Orthodox and Hindu temples and synagogues, and also very much in the Protestant Christian areas, not so much Catholicism, but that I do have some experience with that. And something that really has always stood out to me was in trying to see these different families and systems and their beliefs, and honoring each and every single one of them, because they all of these families were loving and kind to me, and they believed something different from one another. And I found myself in this Southern Baptist church. I don't remember how old I was. I think maybe 8 or 9. And there was a part in the sermon that said, um, for those that have the eyes to see and hear, the kingdom of God is within. And as that statement was coming to me, I was experiencing like an angelic presence, and I was seeing light codes coming off of the Bible. And now it does that. It also does that in the Torah. It did that when I was reading the priestess codes transmission. When I'm reading a channeled text, it is light that comes in. And so I'm understanding that when we are looking through like religious programming, for example, when we are reading these texts and we're looking for the answers of how to be, and if we're doing that from the mind, from the ego, from a place of separation and scarcity and fear, we're going to try and be linear with it and take it exactly as it is. But those have, that dogma has shame woven into it. It has fear woven into it. It has so much into it. But you can't take the truth that is always true, the everlasting truth, right, of source cannot be taken out of anything because it is in all things. So I would say that, Alyssa, what you're experiencing, right, is like your heart is bigger, right? Our hearts are bigger, the collective heart is bigger. So we are receiving the truth, and it's making everything else dissolve. And that is like, we're all going to experience it differently, and it feels really exciting. That's what I want to share.
yes,
I love that so
yes,
much. That was amazing. Yes.
I think this is important to note because I think there's a lot of fear around entering this next age. It's like we know that we are ushering in a golden age, but there's also like the AI fear programming. There's all these, these multiplicity of timelines that are, kind of trifurcating here. And I think that, based on our attunement, we experience one or the other, but there's also points at which, we're um, transforming one timeline that is not our primary timeline. And so I think that this idea that we can tune in to things that are located in another timeline or in another frequency bandwidth, and that there's kind of like it absolves us of this need for purity, right? Like we can resource from whatever exists. Like
Ooh.
there's whatever exists will reveal itself in the right time in the tenor if we are tuned in to our own frequency first. And so I think for me, that just kind of like absolves me of this fear of, what's coming, because it's like like you were saying, Sheena, it's just so beautifully, it's like the truth will shimmer through. It cannot be hidden anymore. And so for those who have eyes to see and ears to hear, it will be there even whilst other people are having a completely different experience of that same thing and might be using it for oppression and, for the same kind of tired dogma that we're transcending, that there's going to be an entirely different undercurrent of this emergent and ancient truth that is just like bursting out. And yeah, that's what I'm just feeling that lately. And I'm so
Woo.
pleased to be
Yeah,
in
and
it with you.
As you're talking, I'm like lighting up. My whole body is just shimmering with these like chills. Yes, sister, thank you for your both of your words. I mean, this is phenomenally put. And I love your piece about living one version of reality as another version coexists. That is exactly what I feel we are stepping into, which is why, yes, actualizing your own highest potentiation, being in your own frequency, being self attuned is paramount. And then know that the molecules, so to speak, the environment will be crafted around you for you, and you will zig and zag and rise and fall and interact and weave with those things that are a match, that are just for you, even as your neighbor or your bedmate, as I like to say, might be living a very different version of reality. And I also loved what you said about absolving us of the need for purity, and the need for perfection came up as well. We can't get it wrong. We're really here for the experience, for the expansion. And if we did everything right, we probably wouldn't really expand. We certainly wouldn't learn, you know? And I think learning begets expansion. So let's just go and mess up and have a great time.
I love that. I think too, when you said something earlier that to allow ourselves to rise and meet who we are becoming. I think when we're talking about this, the ancient codes and the programming dissolving and absolving ourselves of these this idea of needing to be perfect, by a specific recipe. And what's wanting to come through is just this idea that there is the feminine rising, and that is true not just like it's in the body, but it's also all around the planet, right? It's the feminine wisdom that has been suppressed and also cut off and separated from the light, because the light says the body's bad, because the light says that the needs of the body is bad, right? But that's a distortion. That's actually not true. The lovers need to meet, right? They need to come, and that's that heart center. So as we allow the feminine to rise and the light to come down, it just expands the heart in coherence with the planet. And I think that's really interesting, because then my mind wants to go into like new earth territory, and like this, as you were saying, Alyssa, like having two different experiences or two different realities, like two people, because of where they're resonant, like what they're feeling, what they're experiencing is going to be different from you because you have a different frequency, and the molecules are resonating and bringing forward something different for you. And it's it just gets very like a matrixy for my mind in this field. It's like a playground, right?
Yeah, I love it. Can you speak more about I'm literally seeing the toroidal field of the heart informing, like you were saying, new earth frequencies. What do
Yeah.
you see as the connection between the heart and the new earth?
I think that for me, what I'm really playing with right now is that the heart is, it is this like center place. It is like this the center of our toroidal field, down the central column with our, you know, our three pillars. If you're coming from a Kabbalist perspective, you have these three. Here's the center, and then you also have your soul star chakra, and then the earth. Like, if we're looking at all of that, the heart is this like center place. And how I see that is if we are allowing all of these energies to meet, then the desire that comes through the heart is one of unity, because it's listening to the whole field. And I don't know exactly how that relates to the planet, but that I do feel that we as human beings are kind of like this bridge from between heaven and earth. Not heaven in this like really gate kind of perspective, but just the physically how we stand on the earth and how we meet with the sun. And I'm doing like geometry with my hands. Is it
I'm
making sense?
picking it up. I'm loving your channeling. Sheena, you are such a powerful channel. I regret that I didn't ask you to channel more during our talk because I love hearing your perspectives and what you see and how you perceive it. It feels very visually clear to me and really, really delicious to just like receive your channelings. So thank you.
Thank you. I don't think it can come through without somebody who would receive it. I feel like that's part of the role of the feminine, is like to be in community. And sometimes what I say doesn't make sense until it's out loud and I can see someone, right? Because it's not always for me.
Can
So
I share something that is so exciting to me that is about that?
yes.
I have created a couple of communities, and there's one that I am hosting right now called the Leaders Circle that is specifically for psychically attuned women to be in our channels, to hone, to develop our crafts, our channels, and to be with each other. I call it the master channel effect. When we both focus on a topic together, we've been doing it here, we are privy to so much more information than alone. And in the Bible, wherever two or more gather, right? That leaders circle is a space for us to be in our human as we're riding these waves of change that are happening and really bring the human experience to this safe space to get loved on, to evolve, to become. It's also a space for us to look at systems and patterns globally so that we can, quote, follow the money trail and really look at the politics from this standpoint where each one of us brings our own passion. I'm passionate about medical advocacy. You might be passionate about child trafficking. You might be passionate about, you know, something else, right? Human rights. I think that's beautiful. And it's asking a lot of us to be in our integrity as we make space for those two things, our human and our views of the streams, the mainstreams. And then thirdly, we're taking a higher dimensional perch and really looking at the Earth's ascension timeline. What is the Earth's karmic lot right now? What is the Earth's soul experience calling forward? Because it's way bigger than us. We're going to live so many more lifetimes, theoretically. Maybe not, we'll see. But we've already lived so many lifetimes. We're just the little mice on the wheel here. Each evolution is a lifetime, but the Earth is having her own experience. And when we can see that, I think it really helps us detach from our fear of death, get out of the Maya and the murk of all of the shit that's going down right now, or the chaos that we might be experiencing, and really just see this from a different vantage point and find our inner peace for our human. So anyway, it's called the Leader's Circle, and I want as many women in there as possible because I really feel that now is the time for us to be putting our channels together and creating that new earth frequency.
Yes. Where can we find you?
I am on Instagram more than anywhere else, but you can also Facebook me. So it's Amron Bevels, MD, on Instagram. And you can also start if I'm too much, you can just start with getting yourself a copy of this book. We have it in audiobook form. It's me reading the book. And I really welcome anyone who feels called to use the book like a little tarot deck, open to a page and see what comes. I just opened to page 155. Side note, can I read it?
Yes.
Okay. I don't even know what we're talking about because I'm disoriented. This is transmission 3. Okay, talking a little bit about feminine sexuality and divine union. Okay. The shaming, profanity, abuse, and blaspheming it has endured over centuries is coming to an end. We're talking about our sexual energy. Your sexual energy is the precious, pluripotent material that sparks all that is. That's it. I'll just stop there. I don't even want to go anymore. It's just this beautiful diatribe into the birthright, the power, the presence, the necessity of our sexual energy.
Yes. What a perfect match to our spiral of a conversation. I love that so much. And we will be sure, we'll link the book, we'll link your website, we'll link your Instagram and your Facebook in the show notes. So please check those out. And I feel like we could keep going. We could just keep spiraling, but this does feel like a beautiful close point. And I'm so grateful for this time. Thank you for sharing yourself with us, Amron, and all of your glory.
Thank you so much for having me. It's funny, I have contractors downstairs and they've been so quiet, and now they're starting to use their power tools. So it's the perfect time.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much for today. I've really enjoyed being with you, both of you. I love what happens when we merge our hearts and our presence. It's been delicious. I want to hang out and just snuggle up. Thanks, guys. Truly. Yeah, thank you for what you're doing. This is beautiful work.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you, sister.
Yes. To all of our listeners as well, thank you so much for being here. You're part of this shared field as well.
Yes. Yes.
Until next time, bye.
Bye.